Welcome to Murder by Nature, where the darkness meets true crime, mysterious disappearances, and unsolved cases. I am your host, Jasmine. So if you care to go on this journey with us, buckle up, because it's going to get rough. Our references for today are Yucaipa Police Department, Riverside County Sheriff's Department, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, ABCLA, Fox 11, KTLA, any big news stream platform, and my own personal experience. This is part 2 of Emmanuel Haro's case, and we're going to start where we left off. Now, we return to August 14th, 2025. Jake was frantic. He was scrambling for a ride to the Big Five on Yucaipa Boulevard, and his calls were urgent. His movements were rushed. He needed to get to Rebecca. Now, by the time he arrived, police were already there. Blue and red lights flashing, fuddling that parking lot, and helicopters cut through the night sky. Now, their spotlights swept through rooftop streets, broadcasting one message over and over and over. A baby was missing, 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro, and the search was exploding out of this parking lot. Within minutes, the community mobilized. People didn't wait to be asked. They grabbed their flashlights, they jumped on their bikes, they piled into cars, and they took the streets by foot. Parking lots were flooded with people wanting to help. Parks counted for, alleys counted for. Trash cans were open and checked. Fields, parking lots, yards, nowhere felt too small for a baby that went missing. And no lead felt insignificant. Now, this wasn't a police operation. This was a town that refused to sit still. And this is where I come into the story. Because this didn't happen in some distant city or a news headline for a far removed place from real life. This happened in my town, my backyard, my hometown. And these were my streets, places that I've walked, driven, and known for years. And now it was filled with fear, urgency, and this strange need to unite for one mission, one effort. Where was Emmanuel? For a moment, we're going to step out of the reports, out of the news, out of the timelines, out of everything. And I'm going to take you into the night that I endured, what I went through. And this is going to be from my point of view, into a community that would not sleep, that would not look away, and would not stop searching for an 8-month-old. 8 p.m. This time no longer moves for me. It stays frozen every single night since August 14th. I was in the pool with my family. We had music blasting. We had kids laughing. We were playing Marco Polo, red light, green light, colors, all of the things that you do when that summer evening is coming to an end. School just started. We were finishing out what summer felt like. It was loud. It was joyful. It was normal. It was one of those moments that you feel is going to just last forever. And then it didn't. The helicopter was low. The noise was so loud it rattled the air, and a beam of light swept across the yard. This cut through the dark, and suddenly everything felt off. A voice broke through the sky, a sharp, urgent echo, and over the rooftops, through the backyards, it said, a missing 7-month-old, male, Hispanic, last seen wearing a black Nike onesie, approximately 21 pounds, 24 inches, brown hair, brown eyes, cross-eyed. Residents were urged to be on the lookout. Now, at first, my brain rejected this. It didn't make sense. This was Yucaipa. I climbed out of the pool, asked my husband, what did they say? 76-year-old? No, he said. 7-month-old. I shook my head and said, no, there's no way. This isn't a baby. No, this is not happening. But it did. And that fear hit me sharp, heavy, inconsolable. And we rushed the kids out of the pool. Now we wrapped them in towels, ushered them inside. That laughter stopped, the music went silent, and that night changed in seconds. Inside the house, everything felt urgent. It felt tense. It felt like we didn't know what was going on or how to process what we just heard. I called our dispatcher to ask them, what's going on? What was that alert? Was it really a 7-month-old? Was it a 76-year-old? We live in an old community. It's normal for older people to go missing. But the woman on the other end answered, and her answer broke my heart. Yes, she said, a 7-month-old Hispanic male wearing a black Nike onesie. His mother reported that she was changing him the backseat of the car when someone came up to her, patted her on the back, said hola, hit her unconscious, and when she woke up, her baby was gone. The car seat was still in the back of the truck. There was no idea if there was a stroller, if the stroller was taken. She just knows that someone came up and her baby was gone. Now, there is no description of another vehicle, no description of a man, no description of anything else, No clear direction on where to go. Just a baby gone. Standing there still wet from the pool, I listened to that and I knew that this wasn't just another alert. This wasn't just another night. This was a moment that my hometown held its breath. Now I went straight into mom mode. I moved into autopilot and I got the kids showered. I got them in pajamas. I got them laying down. I needed them safe. I needed my children safe. I needed them sleeping. I needed to see them sleeping. I needed to see them breathing. I needed to protect them before my mind could begin to process what was going on and what was happening outside the walls of our home. And time was distorted. Now it's like a clock that's moving, but I wasn't inside of that movement. Everything was just stale, closed. Being inside that house became unbearable, and the walls felt like they were closing in on me. My breath turned shallow, but it turned rapid. Each breath that filled my lungs failed to actually reach into the depth of my lungs. And I stepped out into the porch because I felt like I was suffocating. I felt like if I continued to be inside of my home, I was going to lose my mind. And the tears started flowing. Now I remember in this moment trying to catch my breath because I knew I needed to go back inside. I knew I needed to figure out what I was going to do, how I was going to process this. Why was this affecting me so much? Why did I feel like I needed to do something in this instance? And then I was like, okay, breathe. Go inside, lay down. It's going to be okay. And I kept trying to tell myself, like, I need to regain control. I need to just take a moment to win it. Instead, it got worse. I remember collapsing into my bed and sobbing that painful sob into my husband because I just didn't know how to handle what was going on, and he didn't understand what was going on with me. He asked me, why is this affecting you so bad? Like, what's wrong? Why are you reacting in this sense? And I didn't know. I couldn't explain it. I didn't have the words. I didn't fully understand what I was going through at that time. And then my mind started racing. Thoughts started pulling in. For me, I was thinking, okay, analytical mode, let's jump in. If they stole a baby, they need to go check CVS, check State Bros, check Bonds, check Walgreens, check the cameras. Because if they stole a baby, they need to have diapers, formula, wipies, food, all of these things. Just, okay, checking off that list as a mom. And then it came across my head. If they don't do these things, if they don't go to these stores, say they go and check the cameras, then they don't plan on keeping him. They don't plan on keeping him alive. And that's where that pain just landed, and it was violent, and it stole air from my chest. And I couldn't stay still. I couldn't stay inside. I couldn't sit inside my house and just guess and wait and hope. I knew without question that I needed to get up and I needed to leave. I came downstairs, I sat on the couch, and I tried to steady myself. And that's when my daughter was there. She was 18 years old. She was awake. She was going through these same emotions, not really sure what to do, how to handle this, what to process, but she knew something wasn't right. And I asked her, do you want to come with me? I'm not staying here. Do you want to come with me? She looked at me, confused but serious. I can't stay in this house. I told her, I need to get out of here. I need to help. I need to be boots on ground. Because sitting here, wondering, waiting, just felt worse than not going out there and helping. She said yes, and we got into the truck, and we sat there for a moment. We just knew if we looked at each other, and like neither one of us knew how to process what we were feeling or what we were doing, but we knew exactly what we were going to do. So we started driving. We went to 7th Street Park, which is where that football field was. We checked alleys, we checked bathrooms, we checked fields, we checked side streets. We drove slowly up and down the neighborhood, passing churches, passing empty lots, anywhere that a baby can be. Possibly, like anywhere that they can be. We scanned shadows, we went through bushes, like we went on every aspect, every corner, everything that you would think, what if someone dropped them in here? What if someone dropped them here? And then also that pit in your stomach, like, what if I find him? What if he's not alive? What if this, that, and the third? And you just keep processing these emotions as you're going through this. But this is where that pain turned into a realization that where I was in the city of Yucaipa, I wasn't by myself. I wasn't alone. It wasn't just me and my daughter. Everywhere we went, people were out. Bikes were rolling up and down the street slowly. Cars were crawling with their windows down, just in that slow crawl. People were walking in pairs, in small groups, with flashlights. Like, this wasn't organization. This wasn't the police telling us to come out and look. It was instinct. Someone in our community was hurting, and we, as people in this community, were going to do what we can to help them. And the community moved as one that night. After hours of searching, we ended up back to the place where it started, in the Big 5 parking lot. Now, the entire time we were going through this, police were already here. This entire area was shut down. Now, the Big 5 to the empty Big Lots that was empty, it's Planet Fitness now, was blocked off. They had yellow tape stretched across the lot. Canines were out there searching, trying to find some form of scent in this pavement, like nose to the ground, searching for Emmanuel. The scene was quiet, but it was tense, like heavy, urgent, like everyone wanted answers. They were all sitting there in their cars, just behind this yellow line, to see if anything was going to happen. Was anything going to come through? Were we going to get answers tonight? And that's when an officer walked by, and I asked, what can we do? What should we be doing? Like, where do you need help? And he kind of just shook his head and said, there's no updates right now. There's nothing that we can do right in this moment. There's multiple agencies on this case. Multiple agencies are working this. We'll provide an update when we have one. There was nothing else left to do this night. The streets were still full. People were still out. Helicopters were still circling. They were looking. There was multiple police officers out in streets, parks, everywhere you can think of. They were out there looking. But for me, that adrenaline rush, that exhaustion was starting to set in. It was starting to hit. There was no answers, and there was no answers to be found anywhere. And eventually we made the decision to come back home. I had work the next day. Maybe if I just sit down, all of this was just going to be a fever dream. It was going to be okay. Maybe rest would come. But it didn't, because there was still a missing 7-month-old just outside the walls of my home. Now, that next morning, everything changed. Everything that you think is going to be okay, like it's going to pass, it all changed. The community woke up in hopes to find Emmanuel found, that this would all be resolved, that this was just a mistake and someone was going to bring him back. But that night turned in from this terrible understanding, and this baby wasn't home. It wasn't brought back. All that we know is that Emmanuel was still gone, and instead of waking up to the police telling us that everything was okay and it was going to be fine, we woke up to social media. So in Yucaipa, we have a bulletin board. This bulletin board is where our community is able to go and just talk and post stories and comments. And that bulletin board was flooded with posts, comments, people asking questions, wanting answers, wanting updates, sharing prayers, like praying to this family and offering help. We were going to do whatever we could do to help them. And it felt like this entire town was online all at the same time, trying to make sense of this pain that was going through. And all of us were just holding our breath together. And then we saw it. Rebecca and Jake were asking for the community to come to Big 5. They were going to be at Big 5. They were asking us for help. They needed to search. They needed support. They needed people. And word spread quickly. People showed up at the Big 5. Strangers, families, all standing together. Rebecca's family and them came. Jake's family and them were there. We were all coming, all trying to help, all trying to come and find Emmanuel. Flyers were passed out with Emmanuel's face on them. It was just staring right back at us. His name printed in the bottom. But one thing stood out. I think it's the one thing that everyone talks about the most. The flyer didn't talk about an abandoned child. It said missing. It didn't say kidnapped. It said missing. Missing child. One small detail that began to question everything that we were going through. Now, it wasn't long before the Big 5 was filled with strangers, filled with newscasters, just filled with this scene out of like a news broadcast center that you see in other states, in other places, in other missing persons cases. Not here, not in Yucaipa. Cameras lined the perimeter. Reporters jolted for positions. They wanted to cover this story, a story of a missing 7-month-old out of Yucaipa, California. And the details were starting to trickle in. A mother struck from behind, knocked unconscious. When she came to, her infant son was gone. Now, officials released an actual statement this day too. We continued our search for 7-month-old Emmanuel, He was reported missing, kidnapped last night in Yucaipa. The sheriff's statement stressed that the baby had not been found, and investigators were continuously working on this case to locate the child. Now, Rebecca and Jake, they stepped up to the cameras. They did interviews. Their faces were etched with fear, desperation, speaking directly to the public and implementing, this is what happened, this is where my child is. And they spoke directly to this person. Now, Rebecca's voice trembled as she described Emmanuel. He was joyful. He was happy. He laughed. He loved his big sister. Please give him back to me, she said. Please don't hurt my son, she said. Beside her, Jake spoke with this mix of anger and anguish. And he said, whoever took my son, please bring him back.
It's just a baby. Just give our son back, please. Whoever took my son, please return him. We just want him back. We won't do anything to you. We just give us our son. Just keep him safe. Don't hurt him. Make sure you feed him. Change him.
His words carried across this lot, and cameras rolled live for viewers all across Southern California. But then that story leaped farther than Yucaipa. That story leaped farther than local. It swept across the nation. People were waiting, holding their breath, and looking and trying to find Emmanuel Haro, putting these pieces together and trying to think, like, what happened here? Social media went crazy on this case. This wasn't just something that was happening in a small town anymore. It was something that was seen across the nation. And as expected, police moved quickly to interview Jake and Rebecca. They wanted every detail. What she remembered, what she saw, who she was around that night, was someone watching her, and anything that can lead them to where Emmanuel was. Investigators were methodical. They pressed for a clearer timeline. They hoped that the parents would recall some bit of information, something that happened, but that's where this changes. I need water. This is still recording. I feel so bad for Eddie. How are you liking it so far? Eddie's gonna have to cut this all out. Trying very hard not to cry, so this has been so great. And it's great that this is where I'm cutting it, because he can cut this out, and then we're actually putting the news, Jake and Rebecca's actual news video, their actual interview, will be right here in this part. Okay. The very next day, the story began to shift. Authorities issued an update. They had interviewed multiple individuals, regarding this disappearance, including both the child's mother and father. And during those interviews, Rebecca Haro was confronted on her inconsistencies. She was confronted that her story didn't align. And in her initial statement, she said she pulled up to Big Five, she was changing him in the back of the car, someone came up, knocked, hola, knocked her out, the baby was gone. But that's not what happened. That's what they told her. Your story is inconsistent. And Rebecca stopped the questioning. She didn't want to talk to them anymore. She declined to continue with this interview. Now, following these developments, the officers admitted that investigation, they were still without answers. They didn't know what was going on, and they were not able to rule out foul play. The words struck. I felt like I lost my breath during this point. Now, what began as this frantic community-wide search for a missing baby now became clouded with suspicion and unanswered questions. The narrative shift and social media exploded. Now, this is where I come to social media, where my videos coming on, crashing out in the Carl's Jr. parking lot. I'm wanting to share facts. I'm wanting to share awareness. I want the timeline out. The community, we were being told that this was happening. We were getting daily updates from our police department. And that's when those videos started hitting the For You page, and we were spreading awareness far outside of Yucaipa. Meanwhile, Jake's sister also took to Facebook. She wanted to go on there and plead for them to understand that her brother was a good man. He was a good person. The family was terrified for Emmanuel. They didn't know who took him. And we should be looking at the real people that were responsible for this. That's what that video basically summarized. But the community wasn't waiting. People flooded the streets in front of the Haro house. They were protesting, demanding answers, demanding for them to get out of the house and come help us search. Jake and Rebecca just stood up in their house after this. They never left from that initial search. They stood there in their home, refusing to come out. And they were screaming at them, come out, come and search for your son. And amongst the amount of public pressure and the inconsistencies in Rebecca's statement, Child Protective Services came into the picture. Now, they had a daughter. She was Emmanuel's older sister. And they removed the daughter from the home as they continued this investigation. By August 18th, the search had intensified, and officials were conducting intensive searches in Yucaipa and Cabazon because the Haros lived in Cabazon. They were looking for Emmanuel and any evidence that might lead to his location or the circumstances that were surrounding his disappearance. Now, according to the press release from the Sheriff's Department, authorities also confirmed that they had several search warrants for the Haro house, and they were reviewing a large amount of surveillance footage from the area of interest. On Thursday, August 19th, the investigation took on new layers as tensions began to emerge. Conflict narratives were coming out. Officials said that they were looking at a tip that they thought that someone saw Emmanuel Haro in Kern County. It's a little bit north in Northern California. But no information was provided on where in Kern County. It's a big county. They didn't provide where that they were looking. And that's when this vague tip, it flickered, like, okay, maybe she gave him away. Maybe something was going on. Maybe someone really did take him. That's what, like, maybe this isn't what's happening and this really did happen. But at the same time, Jake lowered up, and his legal person quickly jumped in to try and help spin this narrative in a positive area. His attorney was Vincent Hughes. Now, Vincent Hughes spoke to both NBC and Fox 11 News publicly denying claims that law enforcement said that the couple was uncooperative. He said, no, that's not what happened here. Hughes insisted that Jake and Rebecca were fully cooperative. They handed over phones, laptops, their car. He argued that they had passwords and authorities weren't doing enough to find Emmanuel. They were just focused in the wrong area. He said, it doesn't seem like law enforcement is doing anything to find this child. He holds up Jake is held up in his house, his family. They're not getting any support for what they need. He added, the family was even facing death threats. All the reports I'm seeing on social media, Jake and his wife are running. They're at their house, is what he said. They're at home. They're held up for security and grieving their son. That's what Vincent Hughes said. That's what he told investigators. That's what he told media. They're grieving their son. Now, the attorney also criticized the sheriff department for misrepresenting the parents publicly, saying that they should be working with the family. They should not be putting this out for the public to view, for the public to paint them as unhelpful. Now, after reports emerged that the Haros were allegedly not cooperative, we'll back up just a little bit. The Uvalde Foundation came in and said that they will give a reward for what happens with Emmanuel. But the minute that police let the public know, they weren't helping, they pulled that reward. They rescinded the reward money. They said that they want Emmanuel to come home safe, but something was fishy here. But after hearing Vincent Hughes, the claims that Jake and Rebecca are cooperating, they were wrongfully portrayed this way, the foundation signaled that they were willing to give the parents the benefit of the doubt. They were willing to put that offer back on the table. But they had one stipulation. They said, here's our challenge. You join the search and you will be protected. A community seeks answers. You say that you do. Prove it. And our foundation, our community, we will follow. You have the opportunity to change the trajectory of this narrative in this case, a case that involves your child. You have nothing to hide. Step forward. And you will find more support than you can ever imagine. Finding Emmanuel should supersede everything. Your renewal and commitment and transparency will unite the movement of the support, and we will find Emmanuel. That was their statement. They never came out. They never searched. They never joined in. With no sighting, no concrete evidence, no information on where Emmanuel was, the public opinion began to shift. Concern for the parents, like when we initially heard this, we were concerned for the parents. That moved to suspicion. That moved to questions whether Jake and Rebecca was actually responsible for their son's disappearance. The Haro home became a tense environment. It was uncomfortable. People were protesting outside, gathering outside. Cars lined that street every day, morning and night. People were shining flashlights through their home, screaming at them, "Join the search." People chanted in the middle of the road towards them. And that's when this community began to rally together to find this baby, to find answers. And it wasn't just what was the parents doing. They were changing. They were shifting. It was now there was doubt and frustration within Jake and Rebecca. And they wouldn't help. People would knock on their doors and say, "I will take you wherever you need to go. Where do you want to go look? Where do you want to go search? You can use my phone." There's video of this out there. People knocking on the door asking, like, "I will help you. What do you need?" And Jake closing that door on them. "We don't need your help." Now, as the days passed, the scrutiny on Jake and Rebecca intensified. Protesters watched their every single move. They recorded where they went. They monitored what they were doing. They were outside the home. There was never a moment that someone wasn't outside that home. And meanwhile, the search began to expand outside of Yucaipa. It started to hit other surrounding areas, other places where maybe Emmanuel would be there. Now, I will say, in this moment, this is when a lot of the mediums started coming in, and we started seeing a shift in where people were going to search. People went as far as Whitewater, Palm Desert. They went to Hemet, San Jacinto. People were searching just for any aspect of, this is where he is. This is where he might be. People wanted answers so bad as a community, and Jake and Rebecca stood in their home the entire time. On August 20th, the couple was seen leaving the Riverside Superior Juvenile Detention Center. Now, images surfaced this day of Rebecca and her black eye. Now, her black eye was darkened, and more speculation started to follow in with the black eye. People became obsessed with every detail of it, myself included. And news channels, social medias, and community members alike, they started dissecting every movement that they made. What were they doing here? What were they doing there? Let's dive into the people that were at the Yucaipa Juvenile American Field. What were they looking like? What was happening? And that's when Jake's past started coming through. When we knew that about Promise, and when we knew about his other children, they started dissecting every moment. That's when Rebecca's past came up, and we started learning about her. Social media went into a frenzy with this case. And then everything changed. August 22nd. Now, after a long night of protesting, I was outside the Haro house this night. The community awoke into what no one expected, no one prepared for. Social media was buzzing. People were freaking out. News alerts were flashing, and your heart sunk when you watched or read or got that call from someone. Jake and Rebecca were arrested at their Cabazon home for the murder of their son, Emmanuel Haro. Based on the evidence, investigators determined that a kidnapping in Yucaipa did not occur. It is believed that Emmanuel is deceased, and the search to recover his remains is ongoing. That's what the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department stated. Detectives from the sheriff's, from Homicide Detail Special Forces, they confirmed that they were arrested under PC 187. Now, authorities did add in here that there was no other arrest made and no additional suspects that were outstanding or remain unclear. They emphasize While the arrest marked a significant development, our focus is finding the remains of Emmanuel. Rebecca was taken into custody. She went to Robert Presley Detention Center, where she still remains to this day, while Jake Haro was booked into Larry D. Smith Correctional Facility. This was all according to jail records at this time. What began as a frantic, desperate search for a missing baby ended up in this devastating, unimaginable turn point. The community's hope was shattered. Public outrage boiled over, and the unthinkable truth became very clear this day. The violence that came from this very family that was entrusted to protect Emmanuel took his life. This is where we're going to stop. And next week, we're going to pick up the story at August 22nd and the days that followed. We're going to dive into the aftermath of the arrest, the search for Emmanuel Haro, and the rippling effect that took place in this community. Now, I hope that you guys enjoyed this part of Emmanuel's story, and we're going to continue to go through his story. We're going to continue to bring awareness to his case. We're going to continue to celebrate the short life that he did have and love him like his family should have. Now, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you do like it, please go follow me on TikTok. I do share his case in every update we get continuously. That is what this page is for, to bring awareness to him and to other children like him and other cases like him. I hope you guys have a good day.